And now we're live. Woohoo! All right. Hey, I'm Joel. It is Tuesday, May 26th, not Monday. I know it feels like the beginning of the week, doesn't it, everyone? But it is Tuesday for those of you here. I hope you had a good Memorial Day weekend. For those of us in the US, we took an extra day off this weekend, and I sure enjoyed it. I hope everyone else took advantage of it. But let me first, Tim, I'm going to say hello to you, but please then greet and welcome our friend and guest, Mr. Ryan Summers.
Well, you just welcomed him.
Fair enough.
Hi, Ryan Summers. Good to see you.
Hello, Tim. How are you doing?
Good. Joel texted me yesterday in the middle of something, and I had to admit to him, I was like, well, I'm taking a nap in preparation for the week ahead. As we learned on Friday, rest is preparation, not reward, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
But when we were like batting things back and forth, we were saying, look, there's nothing that beats community to knowing that community and education. So thanks for joining us today, because I know the stuff you do in School of Motion and some of the thoughts you have out there kind of agree with that. So
yeah, it's
welcome
great. This
back
is great
to the show.
Thank you. This is great. A great follow-up to a very David Lynch Memorial Day. It was a very, very strange Memorial Day for me.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, thanks for being, as always, our willing accomplice in this effort called the Daily Briefing, which is, for anyone joining the first time, this is simply a conversation that we've been having ever since the pandemic started to bring owners of creative firms together and process and have some group therapy, if you will. And today, Tim, do you want to set this up and talk about our topic, what we're going to get into? And let's also remind everyone here that this is very much an intimate and open forum. So questions and comments are absolutely welcome.
Well, yeah, I'll say like it comes perfectly out of the conversation I just had with the head of programming at NAPI. NAPI is a gigantic conference that happens in Budapest and in Miami twice a year, once a year in each location. And the ability to meet, regardless if we're legally allowed to do something or a hotel is willing to open up its doors to it, will people show up, is this last question. Really kind of creates this new platform or new need for a platform for community, for engagement, because that face-to-face thing that we've become so accustomed to and a necessity within our industry is kind of fading, or at least put on pause for a while. But I know in my heart, I think many of the listeners know on our heart, is like nothing beats community. Community is absolutely critical to what we're doing, especially in a creative field. We depend on each other. The process is an ongoing process, and really the ability to bounce things off of each other, to get a sense of what's going on out there, and then to learn and create engagement really just through osmosis of a crowd. Our concern is that we're going to be missing that, and we're going to have to be thinking through or pushing something or breaking the norm or whatever. So that's where our process, that's what we're thinking. And Ryan, School of Motion, you guys really have done something really great online, but really people are still part of a close-knit community. What's the trick there with what you guys have done?
I think it's a little bit about what we were talking about, in the pre-show, is that when you set up a place where you push people further than they think they could go, and you put it in a community of people that are kind of like-minded, there's that aspirational goal of just wanting to get better. But I've taught in a lot of different places. I've taught brick and mortar, I've taught other online schools. And I think what they've done, what Joey and the team at School of Motion done, is really different. There's, I hate to call it cult-like, but there is kind of like a fraternity feel that I don't know if it's because of the people teaching or the teacher's assistants, or just the leadership, that's kind of projected outwards. But there's something about asking people to push themselves harder than they normally can in a group together in kind of a pressure cooker situation. I think that the choice to call their classes boot camps early on, I think, was a really good word, because you can have classes, you can have videos, you can have lectures, but the fact that you're really in a place that's going to push you further, that's been interesting to see. As we've kind of grown and had classes that don't have as strong of that kind of mentality, and we've kind of returned and doubled back on that, kind of putting together, asking them to do more, and allowing them to kind of freely communicate. It's kind of not unlike what's going on right now. Everybody has the same similar situation. The work isn't there, or they're scared that it's not going to be there. And a place where you normally be kind of competitive, that's the interesting thing I see at School of Motion, is that there's people who normally look at each other and kind of point their finger like, you're the other person trying to get a job from me. You're the person who wants to go freelance when I want to go freelance. You're going to ask the same clients. But somehow, I don't know if it's the peculiarity of motion design, or just as a industry and the types of clients that are out there and the ever expanding kind of nature of it. But yeah, there is this kind of feel that I didn't get when I was in animation or VFX or game design, that when you put people together in that kind of pressure cooker, people seem to complement and help each other as much as they, or more than they kind of try to take each other down.
Yeah, I'm curious, Ryan, is there almost, I'm going to call it a benefit to peer pressure in that sort of a setting or format?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if you look at other people doing something, education online, a lot of times it's just like, here's a video, watch it, and maybe post something after you do it. But when you can actually, I mean, this is all kind of coming at the same time, right? Like, I think Joey and his team got ahead of it. But you see it now with the ability with Slack and Zoom, where you can actually actively collaborate. You don't have to just be, in a black box, make something, put it out and hope that, people like it or you get a client. That, I think we're learning that the making of something is as interesting and as you can take advantage of the making of in the process as much as you can take advantage, maybe even more than the final product, especially for motion design, when we're all busy just, like making a commercial or a product. We don't own much of anything. I just had a long conversation with someone who pitched something, a title sequence pitch, and they didn't win the pitch, but then 6 months later, they saw the product that came out, the titles, and it was literally their content. And we were having a long conversation about, what do you do when that happens? Can you show the work you did? Is it going to create controversy? Do you not want to get blowback from it? But that making of, the kind of like the theory, the process, the conceptual skills, that's something that, is as important, if not more important, than the final product. That's been very different, I think, in my time watching as a student at School of Motion, and then now working. People are really into that pressure cooker and that peer pressure of, how did you do this? I want to do it. Show me. And then also being able to stand on like a soapbox and say, I did this. It's really interesting.
So I think that we've had some experience, or specifically Joel, you have the Jumpstart group, and then what folds eventually into Confab. And then Ryan, you have the classes that come out of School of Motion. Do you guys find that because you define a pool of people to begin with, so they kind of have like their own cohorts to go through the process with, that cohort sticks together more?
Absolutely.
They learn together. They have the same language. They share the experiences.
Yeah. That was one thing that surprised me when I started officially with School of Motion, was how much internally people almost tag teamed, or they would kind of take the experience together, right? So it's one thing to take the class and learn, but I just watched, not to talk too much about animation, I just watched this great old documentary called Frank and Ollie, about Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston, two of the 9 old men at Disney. And they were friends before they ever went to school. They were friends at Disney, and they basically spent their entire lives living next to each other, going to work together. And the kind of advances that they made in both their own work and the industry was amazing, because they were just taking steps together. And we find that people either end up collaborating together, sometimes starting companies together, or end up trading work back and forth with each other in ways that I don't think you would normally get at an art school. It feels a lot like when I talk to people who go to business school and they end up finding their kind of like their better half, almost like in a marriage, that you don't see in art school very often. I feel like we are seeing that at School of Motion.
Oh, that's cool. How about you, Joel? Like Confab, do you find, because that cohort went through Jumpstart together, when they transitioned to Confab, which is really more of an open platform, multiple classes can join it. Do you find that you still have people that congregate together that went through the class together?
A little bit. I think initially they do, right? Because right now there's probably 7 or 8 graduates that are going into Confab, and they're sort of like, hey, nice to see you here. But there are people that have been in that larger group of, say, 30 or 40 owners that have now become familiar with each other over the past year or two. But I think one of the strongest things is they've built a common language. So they know how to process things together. They have a structure or a way of thinking, and they know, for example, it's all about confidence. And they know in this situation, oh, did you apply the 3 R's? And oh, the way that you qualified someone, did you use the the rules of engagement that we all learned. In fact, several of my students have often used the Yoda expression, remember your training, that they have this common knowledge that they get to share and encourage each other. And it's always, to me, very surprising how some owners from the outside looking in think, well, that would be kind of weird. That might be a little awkward. There might be some competitors in there. And then there's owners that jump into it and they look back later and they say, wow, why haven't I been doing this my entire career?
Yeah. I know that. So the cohort dinners that we have and some of the learning opportunities that we put out there, really the purpose is to create that community engagement. I think it's just encouraging for people to understand how it really works. Even with Revolve, we've been hitting this pretty hard in the idea that we're going to do these breakout groups. And Ryan, I know you're going to join us for the Revolve stuff and kind of be part of those groups. But we know that really we're going to talk about something so specific. And you're not going to be able to go just call anyone. You won't be able to kind of listen to a podcast and call anyone and they'll kind of get the concept. You have to walk through some of these specific ideas because the timing is so important. And then you almost have to, this is kind of weird, but you have to develop a belief. Like you have to know that the principles are based off of something and it's not just common knowledge. But when you break out of that and you have that core group to process with, those are the people that can confirm and deny certain aspects of what you're doing and then help you to grow even further. So that your learning isn't just within that bucket of whatever that, that platform kind of gave you 8 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, but you can continue to learn in a Slack group or whatever afterward. That perpetual learning is truly some of the greatest value.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm so excited about for Revolve is that, I think a lot of times it's a cliche, but it gets lonely when you're at the top, right? When you work, you're in school and you have the biggest group of peers and you get to a company and you work with some people, but then you go freelance and then that peer group gets cut in half. And then maybe you start your own company and you're not even part of the peer group of artists that you came from. Like this process of going up the mountain starts to get very, very lonely, and finding a way to kind of create that peer group again, where there's competition, but it isn't cutthroat. Again, I've been watching a lot of documentaries during the pandemic, but HBO has a really great documentary about Spielberg. And one of the things that really surprised me that I didn't understand at all was that there was this kind of rarefied air amongst like Lucas, Coppola, Scorsese, Spielberg, all of these guys, that they were the only ones who could even have conversations with each other because no one else had experiences like they had from the 80s on. And through their entire careers up until now, they still kind of have this ongoing almost like cohort of these people who have had these, super, super specific experiences. But they all, speak highly about how much they're better for having these people that from the outside, they look like competitors, right? Like it looks like, Spielberg would go for the same film that Scorsese would go for early in their career. But I don't think there's much like that for us, for motion graphics, either high up creative directors or shop owners at all.
It's funny you mentioned that. It's the Easy Riders and Raging Bulls documentary. That actually inspired some of my early RevThink kind of platform engagement, because there is like this thought of there's an exclusive 12. Right. And there has to be an exclusive 12 and there has to be an exclusive 4 because the standards will come from somewhere. But I think if you're the exclusive 1, no one's willing to listen to you. Right. You have to have at least some knowledge and understanding of where the influence is coming from. And more important, I think where most business owners don't understand is actually a level of responsibility. And the responsibility they gave to one another to hold each other accountable, to beat each other up on certain movies. But yeah, like American Zoetrope, the story behind that and the big failure that was there, that they all failed together on that thing because of Lucas's films. It's an interesting process to know how that they were able to build each other back up again. And then Star Wars came from that. It's a great inspiration and thought.
I just had a thought about this, Tim. I'm curious if anyone here has had this experience. It just occurred to me that when you're a creative entrepreneur, you're running your company, right? This is your journey as a leader. You have a team. You have to inspire them every day. You have to pull the best out of them. You have to obviously engage them and teach them and nurture them and all these things. But guess what? That's their job. It's quite a different thing when you are introduced to a community of your peers. What does leadership look like now? Because the only way you're going to lead or be a leader is by being one. And I think it's an interesting question, because I know for everyone here, there's this journey of I'm trying to run my company and be a leader to my team. But eventually there's a time in your career when you're going to be a leader amongst looking outward and facing outward to your community of peers, but also to the industry. And I guess I would encourage anyone that if you're excited by that idea, start that journey now, not later. Don't wait.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this industry, more than many of the other creative industries, needs it, right? Like we don't have a lot of stewardship for where we're going. We're very reactive. I don't think we're proactive as an industry at all, right? You can go all the way down to the bottom, and artists, chase trends that come from other places, not from us, and then all the way to the top, in terms of trying to find other verticals or other ways to use our skills or redefine what our skills are. There's not a lot of leadership in the same way that you see in the graphic design community, in the filmmaking community, in the sound engineering community. They all have people who have gotten solvent enough and confident enough in their day-to-day work that they can start looking at the bigger picture at the same time. And I don't really know if there's much of that either here.
Yeah, and especially when you can identify a specific tipping point, like this, it's so easy right now to recognize tipping point. Like there's no guessing. It's not a subtle one. It's right there in front of us.
Yeah. And
I think for me, my biggest push now is to encourage people to not think of going back. Like to go back would be the same competition, the same work, the same clients. And even though you might have been thriving in that economy is what bursts right now. And we can move forward into something else. And to define that, you're so much greater, right? We know this is going to tip companies over. The burn rate's going to kind of pile up on people. And technology, our deliverables, the way we're going to meet our overhead, all of that's going to have a major impact. Even frankly, the sales and marketing, if you foolishly think you're going to push the same old stuff the way you used to do it and not capture a new way of doing it, you're going to be left behind. But you need other people it feels risky when you do something new, and to at least know, like, well, I'm not a fool doing it by myself. These guys are coming with me, right? And that 12, 15, 20 people are going to be doing something different together. That's what's going to separate them from the crowd. And that's the separation is what helps you grow. That's such a weird feeling, especially as we talk about community. It's the thought of like, oh, I thought you're supposed to always be part of it. And the reality is like to only swim in the middle, to only be part of the big bubble and be somewhere soft in the middle will never get you that opportunity to advance. It's that lonely feeling with others that help you grow and expand beyond like your usual capabilities. Yeah, we had we did some work in Eastern Europe and Moldova, and we went on 2 trips, and we brought a small group of creative entrepreneurs with us each time. And we found that going there, teaching at the Collider conference, and just sharing 4 days together, 5 days together with one another really has created these tight, I don't know what it is, tight but firm group of owners that know they can almost clash with each other and still be friends and still grow that way. I think that, Joel, even when you were kind of running Impossible, there was some people, you came out of Denver. When you guys would go to Los Angeles, you'd be like, yeah, but Denver people are going to kind of like, so we all, even in a big crowd, we kind of find that small group, and then we're that core group that does something, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because we have shared suffering together, I think is part of it, right? Like even when we took some of our clients to Moldova, just that experience of culture shock, foreign environment, all the oddities and quirkiness of just navigating that you tend to bond in those experiences. And then asking those owners, hey, now stand on a stage, and what would you say to 100 people or in a room or a small conference to teach them and inspire them? You're the big shot now. You're from LA or New York, and you've come all the way to Eastern Europe. What would you say? And what I found really cool was every one of those owners got up and was incredibly inspiring. It wasn't about, let me just show you everything I've done and stroke my ego. They were incredibly generous. And then they went back home and had this feeling of, wow, I think I got more than I gave.
Yeah. I think any great conference and almost any great creative company, I always look at the Pixar Brain Trust, or even like Zoetrope, I think, but especially the Pixar Brain Trust, there's a really weird group of people and experiences and ways of working, but all these things always have something in common. Everybody walks into the door shaking hands, saying they respect each other, and then they leave that respect out the door, and then it's hellfire and brimstone. And then when they walk out for having done that, they have trust. It's like some weird kind of like chemical process. Like, you didn't trust each other before. You may have thought you're competitive. You agree to respect each other, and then you just go crazy in terms of like constructively criticizing people. You agree that you're going to do that, and it's a safe space. Even things like, I look at like something like UFC, which now seems commonplace, but 15 years ago, there were only a handful of people even knew what mixed martial arts was. And then a handful of people got in a room together and said, we're not going to do this. This is silly. They argued. And then over 10 to 15 years, they created something that's essentially like the newest sport, right? Like same thing with CG animation with Pixar. That seems to be a commonplace thing, is that there's a group of people who are willing to fight with each other because they know they'll make something better when they come out of it.
Yeah, I love that perspective. There is even like this necessity within a creative team to have that clash, to grow up in that certain way. I know that early on Imaginary Forces days, that transition from analog to digital was so prevalent. We were installing desktop computers while we were going to film animation companies and doing regular film compositing, right? Like all of that processing together. And like the necessity of the war story that comes out of it, right? It's that war story is real, but it also, when you speak it, it kind of starts like dividing the crowd, those who get it and those who don't get it, those who understand something and those who are trying to understand something new. I think it could hold you back if you kind of hold on to it for too long. To recognize the evolution of the war story is an important part of it. But especially in a time where it's really life defining or career defining or business defining, to know that you're going to go into camp together and you're going to conquer that mountain together. And that base camp is what you're going to depend on. It's going to have some core elements to it, but it's the evolution and the progress of that entire camp is what will make the difference over time. Revolve is only a few weeks itself, but the thought of trying to create the camps and then move those camps forward, that in 6 months we can talk about the new pivot for early 2021 and be able to go back to already learned language, already learned ideas, and some new data to create a pivot. It's going to be so much easier than starting from scratch in January, trying to figure out all that you missed for 6 months. Because you're that little bit of edge will just grow and grow and grow over time. And you have to get right at the pinnacle point there. I think that what you guys do at School of Motion too, that you guys could really have, this is the last part I'll talk about, is like the generous effort necessary. So the School of Motion people aren't the people that have failed in life and failed in business, and we kind of scooped them up and said, hey, maybe you can teach something. But it's like the folks at the top, the people that have life experiences and realize there's something more to give than just keep on going at it, is that other kind of element that kind of builds into a big community that way.
Absolutely. And I think that extends even to the students, right? Like we kind of serve 3 different groups of students, and the easy one is always just getting somebody who's interested but has never done it. But I think the people you're speaking of, they are the employees, but also the people who have stories to give and are trying to find a way into another industry or up through an industry. Those are the people who end up becoming, for lack of a better term, School of Motion people, whether they become TAs or they also become instructors, or they're just great, essentially, marketers for us without having to be. They have lived a life and they want something else, or they see a path to another thing. The instructors are that way, but I think that's what's really great. Maybe even going back to that first question, that's why there is that kind of furtive conversation and people who are just pushing everybody along, because they aren't just blank slates. They're looking for something more.
Yeah, there's go ahead, Joel.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think what I heard you saying a second ago, Tim, was I'll say it this way. We all have things we don't know, but we don't know that we don't know them, right? And so when you get into a room with, say, 20 other owners and everyone starts sharing, oh, here's the approach I've used, this is the idea I'm thinking about, oh, I have this new thought for how I can adapt my business model. The odds of hearing that thing that you didn't know goes way up. It goes way, way up. And that's what I love, is that idea of, hey, let's all get in a room and share all this stuff, mix it up and challenge each other, iron sharpen iron, all that, because the odds of transformation happening are going to be high, because you just can't know, you can't know it all.
Yeah.
We are going to wrap up soon. I do want to hit a couple of homework items for people. There's going to be like a secondary dialogue taking place over the next few weeks as we're doing Revolve. Joel and I are also kind of starting this new, we'll say, conversation. We're going to use our daily, our weekly insights, the email insights that we send out. We're going to use that as part of the platform. And we want people to, I'm going to focus on this idea of understanding. I find that that word is clearly a necessity as part of our community, but it's also something that we're missing a lot. I hear a lot of people say to me, hey, Tim, I have a communication problem. And I often joke back of like, I guarantee you don't, because we can communicate in more ways than ever before on the planet. Mm-hmm. What we have is an understanding problem. Mm-hmm. And the understanding of where someone's coming from, how to kind of meet their needs, what our words might mean. One person's words might mean something different than another mm-hmm. person's needs, or getting like true desire or true understanding, a true grasp on what people are processing is a necessity to our time, to our business, but also in this thing that's going to change. We have to be aware, and that has to be apparent. So we're going to start doing that. So those listeners that are not involved with Revolve are going to kind of hear some of that dialogue taking place. But I also want to mention, because it was asked earlier too, the Revolve platform, we're going to do some of it live, but people can watch the video later. What we want people to do live is engage inside that community group. So you can obviously watch and process the information we're delegating out in one area, but those small groups that are going to meet are going to be those are the live events, and those are the ones that you don't want to miss. And Ryan, I think you're going to help us run one of those, right? You're going to kind of be
I hope so. Yeah.
For us in that.
Yeah, I'm going to be a participant and a speaker, I think.
Yeah.
When you're talking about them. I mean, can I just give one allegory of why I think this is going to be exciting?
Absolutely.
I'm probably dating myself, but when you guys started talking about this, do you guys remember the 80s movie Space Camp?
Oh yeah.
I think Revolve, I don't know where we're going, but I know we're going far from here. And I feel like Revolve is going to be a lot like Space Camp. We're going to learn how to flip the dials and push buttons and ask why a bunch of times. And I don't know exactly where it's going to take me, but I'm excited to see, to run through the exercises and see where we're going to go.
Everyone's wondering, are we going to take a ride in the vomit comet? Is that what you're saying,
right.
Ryan?
I'm hoping that's what happens at the end. If we clear this pandemic up totally, like we all got to get together and do that.
Feels that way, doesn't it?
Oh, I love it. Well, hey, I was going to mention a quick shout out, because I see a couple people here that have signed up and jumped in, including Lou and Dominic, a few others. And also I was going to say thanks to
Nico,
and Chris, and Nico. That's right. Nico's here as well.
Yeah.
So glad you guys have jumped in. What else do we need to mention, Tim? We don't know a lot about the daily briefing, how it's going to evolve, because we're figuring that out in real time. So I guess all we really know is that it's changing. We may go to like a weekly format, but we're certainly open to people's suggestions and advice. A few people have reached out to me and said, hey, I've seen this format or this approach or these kinds of topics be really effective. But I have a big idea that I woke up in the middle of the night and I texted you, Tim. So I still need to share that with you.
Yeah, you do. We are going to meet tomorrow here, daily briefing. Thursday is our kickoff for Revolve. And those of you involved with Revolve, we look forward to seeing you on Thursday also. If you need the information, go to revthink.com/revolve. There are 3 different types of engagement that you can include. The first engagement is watching the videos, understanding the concepts. The second one allows you to get into those community groups that we keep talking about. And there is a 7 ingredients discount code. If you don't know what that is, make sure you DM Joel or me. We will give it to you, get you $500 off. So we want to make sure you get that. That third group are people that are further along, want us to do some consulting with them as they process some specifics. We're happy to do that. And we're happy to jump on a one-on-one call with you if that's something you're interested in. So that's Revolve. I do want you to make a quick announcement that there was a PPP update on Friday. I don't want to lose everyone here, but those of you who thought you could increase your revenue as a business owner and capture more forgiveness, that's no longer true. If you're made over $100,000 in 2019, you'll be okay. If you made less than $100,000 and you increased it up to that amount, the amount you increased will not be forgiven. I can give you more details, but I put that in the 7 ingredients finance channel. Take a look at that. It's good. It's a big adjustment to what's forgiven. And if you still have time left, there are still some strategies of onboarding people or other items to get that forgiveness. So make sure you're up to speed with those changes as they come. And I think that's it. That's all I got.
I got one last thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Anyone that's been to a cohort dinner previously is invited. You should have gotten an email from us inviting you to the happy hour that we're going to do global. So this is London, New York, Sydney. What else am I forgetting? LA. It's going to be awesome.
How many more spots do we have open? Because I know we got a lot on Friday.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's about half, a little more than half full, but I do see some folks here that have been to dinner. So if you haven't gotten that email, of course, reach out to me. I'll make sure you get it. But it's going to happen right after the Revolve kickoff. And I just know it's going to be a lot of fun. Lou sent me some cocktail recipes today. So thank you for that, Lou. I'm going to pick the winner and disseminate it before the event. And if you did not get an invitation, you would like to get one, of course, you can always reach out to me and we'll put you on the waiting list. And if you can get in, that would be awesome. But that will be a lot of fun to get all those owners all around the world together. It's going to be super, super fun.
So cool.
Okay, Ethan, can you post a link to just the main cohort page so people that might not know what that is, or if they need a reminder, they can go there. Ryan, thanks again for being our compadre here in the daily briefing. Thanks for sharing your perspective. And most of all, thanks for jumping into Revolve with us.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I'm gonna have to get a Space Camp t-shirt or something for it.
That's right. We're going to create some Space Camp swag around Revolve. That way we can all be in solidarity together. By the way, thanks to Dallas for the de facto t-shirt. Love the swag. It keeps coming in my mailbox. I love it. Love all you guys. Tim, why does RevThink exist? And then give us a sign off.
We exist so you can thrive in business, life, and career. Thank you for letting us be part of your business, your life, your career. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow on the daily briefings, and sign up for Revolve. We need to put those groups together. So if you're interested, do it today. And Ryan, your blessing. Thank you so much. We'll see you on Thursday.
Great. Take it easy, guys. Thank you.
Bye, guys.